and Ryan have heard a few stories. You've told us from time to time about what's gone on and throughout your life, and a particular one that stands out to me is your dad's career.
Yeah, my dad was a professional footballer. He started off playing football after the Second World War when he was a teenager, playing for sides in North Wales where he came from, and got spotted by a scout from Spurs. So in the very early 50s, either 50 or 51, he was taken onto the ground staff, called junior ground staff. Nowadays called apprentices, but a bit different. And was with Tottenham for 4 or 5 years. But some of that was national service, but he was lucky enough because he was good enough for football not to have to go off to Korea fighting. He ended up playing for Tottenham at weekends and the army during the week. So there you go. That was where he's, and that's where he met my mum, who was already into football. She was a season ticket holder at Tottenham before she met my dad. So hence the Tottenham. Which I'm very pleased to see that. Hence the Tottenham connection. But his main professional career was at Gillingham when he got a full-time professional contract. From 1955, played over 200 games there, and when he passed, which was some years ago now, we found his contract offer. Signing on fee, chaps, £10 a week, £9 a week wages with a win bonus of £2.
Oh, don't we wish they were like that today?
Not really, because that wasn't enough to live on. The club, we lived in a rented house paid for by the club, because I was born in 58. So, in fact, my dad, I think, was on his way back from Carlisle playing Division 4 football when I was born, back in 58. So, yeah, hence the grey hair. But 200 games. My godfather, for those you won't know who I'm talking about, but Ron Saunders, who was Aston Villa manager in the 80s, took them to the the League Championship in 1981, that's right. So there is a family connection with football. I remember his career more at Margate in the Southern League, which is obviously a little bit different now because the pyramid's coming, but the Southern League was a lot further up the pyramid in those days, and they won the Southern League title. I can remember him playing there. I can remember waiting for him to come out of the changing rooms, the last one's out. But if he won, I used to get a little corky toy because there'd be a win bonus, and if we lost, I still got some chocolate. But I remember the floodlights fading and the orange light. I know it sounds silly, you remember that sort of thing from those years ago as a kid. I watched my dad play, and then he started managing the football team. So football's in the family. But the message with me, my two brothers play football competitively for the county and for the local area and for local clubs, but I didn't, because one, I have these on, and two, I know what to do up here, but the message doesn't get down to my feet.
I mean, I can reiterate that for myself personally. We love the game, but just can't quite play.
No, that's why I never tell the lads what to do, because I don't. No, and the girls, of course. I tell them to smile though. I got into trouble a few weeks ago, but I'll tell you that later.
Oh, I look forward to that story. So you've given us a great description there and a long career. I wonder if Ryan had any questions about Tottenham back then.
Well, of course you said your dad played, so what was that like for you?
Well, my dad playing at Gillingham, Tottenham obviously I wasn't around, but Gillingham I don't really honestly remember because I was only 3 when he left, but I do remember sitting in the van when we were moving from one house to another when he had to leave the Gillingham house. But my main memories is Margate, but Dad used to take me to Tottenham matches.
Okay.
And in 1970 I had my very first game at White Hart Lane. It was against Manchester United. Now again, I'm going to say players that you two go who. George Best, Bobby Charlton, Alan Gilzine, Martin Shivers, Martin Peters, Pat Jennings. Legends of the games in the 70s.
Star-studded.
Yeah, 55,000 in the ground, of which only two sides were stands up, and of course at my age I was 11. So my dad and my granddad took me and my youngest brother, middle brother, who was 3 years younger than me, all went and watched the game because my mum and my grandma's house was a mile away, just off White Hart Lane, so you could walk down there to the game. You didn't have to get a car or anything like that. So it really was their local club. An amazing experience, and then I saw Brian Moore interview George Best after the game as well, because obviously with the crowds we were so close we waited. But it's a distinct memory, and it's still available in YouTube. 2-2 draw, black and white admittedly, but coverage. But I've been to a few games with Tottenham over the years. But that's been my second team. Gillingham's always been my first team because that's my hometown. Well, was my hometown. Now it's not, of course.
Wow, I mean that's just incredible. And I mean, what an era! I mean, I know some of those names. Obviously, George Best sticks in the mind, and Bobby Charlton, of course, a bit of a hero around England. But what was that move like going from Gillingham to Margate?
Going to Margate, in those days, you had every year you had a retained list. There weren't contracts. You had to be up for moving at the end of each year, and I think there was a change of manager, and the new manager didn't fancy Dad playing, so actually Dad ended up playing at Margate and then did a full-time job working for a packaging company in Kent called Bow Waters, and played for Margate on Saturdays and occasional midweeks. In fact, another thing we found in the scrapbook when we passed was a letter when they did well in the FA Cup one year, and they got to the second round and got a replay against Notts County, and the secretary of Margate wrote a pleading letter to Margate to my dad's firm, asking to have the day off so he could go to Notts County and play in the replay.
Oh wow, that must have been special.
Oh yeah. But of course I find that out later, and I found some stuff about my dad's career at Margate on Wikipedia and on Margate's sites. But before we forget Gillingham and my dad's connection, I'll make a story. I should warn you, if I do talk too much, stop me. But when my dad was 75, I was working with Gillingham, which we'll come on to, I'm sure, later on. And I spoke to the club secretary and said, look, my dad's 75, he played 200 games. Is there any way you can get one of the sponsors to have him sitting in the lounge, their lounge, and watch the game? So is there something special for him? And a couple of days later, he said, no, we're not doing that. Mr. Scally, the club chairman's got to hear about it, and he wants him to be his guest. So he sat in the board. Had lunch with the two boards from Bournemouth and Gillingham, and sat in the boards, the director's box for that game. And my dad was introduced by the club announcer, and he got a huge round of applause, which is very touching to me. And he waved to everybody, and he rang me up in quite a state at the end of the day. He says, "That's a cracking day." Sadly, the following year he did pass. 2 days before Gillingham Shrewsbury playoff final at Wembley.
Wow. I mean,
yeah, that was hard because I was all over the place mentally, and my wife managed to find his old club blazer, our badge, and gave it to me at the game at Wembley. I popped it in my pocket, and we won 1-0 in the 90th minute. You can see I'm going to tear up if I'm not careful, but there you go. So football's ingrained in this brain. Yeah. People sometimes say, "Oh, he knows nothing about football." Well, just know a bit.
I mean, that's just so many special moments. I mean, it's what a special moment to be honoured by the club in that way, and that's what we love about football, when they honour the people, not only just play, but also have a special connection to the club in so many different ways. And that's why I think Ryan agreed. We love
definitely
coming down to Warminster Town and having that connection.